first part of financial statement analysis, we have seen the introduction of this and what is the techniques, the categories, objectives, functions, and scope of statement analysis. Okay, so in that, one of the major technique was ratio analysis. So the complete agenda of today is to understand what is ratio analysis and what are categories of ratio analysis, and each of the category has what all types of ratios. So we are going to see the interpretation of each type of the ratios available in each category. So that's the agenda of today's video. So what is ratio analysis? It is simply a method to understand an organization. Now that can be termed as n number of ways. It can be identifying the strength, the weakness, or evaluating the performance. And different people, like internal or external people, do the analysis for different uh, scenarios, like different use cases, but overall they use this method ratio analysis for understanding the relation between the different attributes belonging to the same organization or different organization. Okay, now significances, it gives us the like these are we are going to see all those ratios one by one, but what are the major things? It gives us the financial positions, liquidity, solvency. So insolvency means bankrupt. Okay, solvency means how stable an organization is. Okay, it's operation efficiency, and we are going to talk all this efficiency in terms of sales, in terms of profit generation from the shareholders' money or profit generation from its current assets. So based on all these kinds of ratio, an investor can choose a company or management can take decision to improve the efficiency. So these kind of decisions happens, but today we are going to see what is these ratios. Okay, advantages is it is used for analysis. Yeah, we know simplified accounting figures because we are bringing all the different amount into its normalized smallest form. Okay, if it is crore by 100, we are bringing the 100 to possible smallest value, that is 1. Okay, so that's how we are decreasing the numericals into a different scale. So it is simplified accounting figures used to evaluate operating frequency, business forecasting, weakness of an organization, for making interfirm and intrafirm comparison. If you have seen the previous video, we have terminologies for interfirm and intrafirm. So inter means among the organization, intra means within the organization. Now drawbacks. So here, whatever the drawbacks ratio is have in general, okay, all that comes into picture plus some more which is related to finance. Okay, so one is, if there is a small change in the ratio, the complete interpretation can go wrong. Okay, why? Because when there is a figure called crore, okay, in that, if even if 10 lakhs is gone, okay, the effect will be slightly less than compared to when it is brought down to smaller scale, like it is brought down to 10. Now if the 10 lakh is gone, and or now if 2 or 3 value comes down, that is 10 becomes 7 or 6. So this small change in the ratio will definitely affect highly while doing the interpretation. So that is one of the disadvantage. Now depends on the historical data may not help in proper forecasting. So here we are talking dependency in terms of ratios. Okay, single ratio does not provide sufficient information. So we are, for any decision we are going to consider a group of ratios. Okay, now in this scope of video we are going to understand one each ratio individually, but once we understand, okay, all these ratios are there, this ratios interpretation is this, then we are going to see, okay, this is my decision, and for this decision what all ratios are required. Okay, so that's how we group the ratios, and as per the requirement or use case. Okay, different firm follow different accounting policies. So here you can say, when we have a common accounting standard, common policies, how can this come into picture? So we also had something called, when an organization is not following a specific policy, or they are using some more policies or principles, when they are deviating from the actual accounting standard, they mention or they back up their deviation with the proper reasoning. Okay, when there is a proper reasoning, it is accepted. Okay, but that reasoning or that difference in policies does not, cannot be reflected in ratios, right? So when some organization is using such principles or policies to come up with their numbers or facts and figures, while comparing, it could lead us to again a wrong interpretation. Okay, price level change, these are some of the external factors. Okay, qualitative factors, windows dressing may affect. So here, window dressing, if you know, when we go to the like when we are traveling on the roads and if there is shops on the foot on the on the corners, we can say, so there will be like a newest dress or the newest brand that have come in, they'll display that on the board, right? So based on just the outside things, we cannot judge what is there inside. It can be like, okay, it is correct, it is legitimate, but it is not for sure. Okay, so that's how window dressing may affect the interpretations. And personal bias, like this company was doing so good, this is my favorite, and my one of the relative works in the company, this is definitely going to work. So that's how, that was an example of personal bias. So those personal bias again may lead to wrong interpretation, not facts or figures. Okay, wrong interpretation. So those were some of the drawbacks that we not only see in this ratio analysis but in regular mathematical ratios as well. So when we are using this ratio for analyzing, then okay. Now coming to the types of ratios. So we have four types of ratio. One is liquidity ratio. Liquidity means the cash which we can spend on now itself, okay? Or we can say the cash in hand, or the assets which can be converted to cash within span, or like very, like as soon as possible, like less than in 1 month. If we can convert an asset into a money, then we can call it as a cash equivalent. Like that asset can be converted to cash, so we call it as a cash equivalent. So those kind of things we call it as liquidity. Now ratios dealing with those cash and cash equivalent, we call it as liquidity ratios. Next is our leverage ratio, which is also known as solvency ratio. So solvency ratio means nothing but which defines the stability of an organization. So those ratios which deals with this will come under leverage ratios. Next, the third category, we have profitability ratios related to profit. So this is completely based on this different attributes, how much profit an organization is getting. So based on this, an investor can choose, okay, this is going into, because it has a good technology or it is going into correct domain, so it is getting more profit. Or based on their assets or their capabilities or skill set an organization is having, the efficiency an organization is having, with the help of which they are generating profit. So we consider different factors to come up with how much profit an organization is able to generate. Next, the final category is activity ratio. So this reflects a management efficiency. Okay. Now we are going to see each ratio in detail. So these are our four categories or ratios at the high level. Now liquidity ratio first is the, here is the current ratio. One second. Right. So this states what is the current assets. Current assets means the assets which can be sold within the like less than 1 year. Okay. And current liabilities are the liabilities which we need to pay within 12 months. That is less than 1 year. So that's how we segregate long-term as liabilities and short-term liabilities, long-term assets and short-term assets. So current ratio is nothing but a ratio of current assets versus current liabilities. So like if I have 400 worth of assets and 200 worth of liabilities, it means if there is an issue comes and if I need to pay something very soon enough, the company has the ability to pay them off. Okay, so that is one of the interpretation. The other interpretation could be that, okay, company has good amount of asset, and it has a certain liability. Now the interpretation will again vary. So here the recommended value is the recommended value of current ratio is 2. Now suppose the current ratio is 100. Okay, so if my current asset is 1000 then current liability is 10, can we consider that our organization is very good? No, because in that case we can interpret that the company doesn't have an efficiency to properly utilize its assets. So there can be a different interpretations based on different values of it. Okay, so recommended value is 2. That is company is trying to maintain its ratio or to being stable, provided that it is also trying to invest or finance different categories, but it also tries to maintain its current ratio. Okay, next is our quick ratio, which is also known as acid test ratio. So liquid current ratio means the the current thing. Okay, cash which is in hand, or the cash at bank, or the receivables. So receivables nothing but the amount that we are going to get. Okay, plus marketable securities. Marketable securities means I have a product, and if anytime if I want to sell it, there will be market for that product. Means for sure there are buyers for this product every time. So the risk of selling a product is very less. So those products we call it as marketable securities. So all this divided by my current liabilities is nothing but a quick ratio. Now what the quick ratio says, it's if suppose uh, uh, if this ratio is more, right, I can say that my liquidity is more. And if my liquidity is more, I can say that if there is any short-term obligations or if there is any amount payables that I have, organization can easily, what I can say, satisfies those requirements. Okay. And next we have cash ratio. So we can see quick ratio and cash ratio are kind of similar. We are dividing or we are having current liabilities as our uh, denominator, but the difference is the value that we have in our numerator. So in quick ratio we have current assets inventory, no, yeah, current assets inventory minus advances minus prepayment. So whatever amount that we have or whatever the current assets, out of that we are removing all the payable amounts. Okay, so advances we got, but is that an asset to us? No, until and unless we provide the service to the person who gave us the advance, it is not considered as my cash. Okay, but that will be a current asset because that is a cash and cash is with me, so I consider that as a current asset. But I cannot use it. I can use it, but I cannot say that I have provided the service to whomever is required. So those kind of things like this inventory, prepayments, so all these things are removed and we consider only cash and cash equivalents to uh, uh, repay the current liability. So when we divide the cash and cash equivalents with current liabilities, we see how much an organization is, what is the stability of an organization or ability of an organization to repay its current liabilities from cash and cash equivalents. So that is nothing but a cash ratio. So we have only three ratios in this liquidity ratios. Now next we have leverage ratio. So here we completely focus on solvency. First is the debt equity ratio. So this is nothing but a long-term debt by shareholders equity. So what this ratio shows us the ability of an organization to completely fulfill the long-term obligation based on the shareholders money only. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And the other way we interpret is long-term debt is what? The amount that we have got as a loan or something that we have to pay back in our long term. Okay, so that is one amount. And shareholders equity means what? The amount that we got from our shareholders. Okay, that makes sense. Now, what interpretation we can do based on this value? So if the value is more, right, we can say that most part of this long-term debt we are getting from the shareholders equity. But if the debt equity ratio is less, we can say that okay, there's a part of it which is provided by shareholders, but most of them is not from the shareholders. So what does we can say, the more value is good or the low value is good? So if higher value means the more we are getting from the borrowed, okay. So the more it is, the more risky it is for the company. So it is advisable that the amount that we borrowed from, or the percentage of the amount that we borrowed from our total capital should be as less as possible. Because if the money is company's own money, then that is good for the organization, right? So higher thing is borrowed more, which is bad for the company. Now, debt to total asset, which is nothing but long-term debt to total asset. So, based on this output, we can say that how much financially stable a company is. Okay, the more the value, the better it is. So, long-term debt means, which we have, again, long-term debt is same thing which we have used previously. No, so if our long term is more, right? So if my long term debt is 20 and my total assets is 1, so I can say my asset is only 1% out of what I have to pay is 20%. So 20 into 5 is 100. So if I have to pay 100%, I have only 5% worth of asset. So the more the value of debt to total is, the more it is close to insolvency. Okay, so the company's intention will be to reduce the ratio in the sense increase the total asset or reduce the numerator, that is long term debt. Next we have pro proprietary ratio. So this is shareholders funds by total asset. Now, shareholder funds means what? The funds that we have for running the business, we got it from outside. Shareholder fund is also known as capitalized money. And if suppose we have one part as capitalized money and our total asset is 3. So 1 by 3 is nothing but 0.33. So we can say 33% of the total capitalization we have got it from the shareholders. Okay. So it means what? The more it is, how can we interpret this? Since shareholders funds is something that we are getting from outside, the less it is, the better it is. So shareholder funds as decreases, the what happens to the ratio? The ratio also decreases. So the less the ratio or the less the percentage it is, the better it is for the organization. Because either you increase the shareholders funds, no, either you decrease the shareholders funds or either you increase the total asset, because in either of the case our result will be decrease in the overall ratio or percentage, which is which based on which we can say how much percentage of the capitalization that a organization is running as is based out of shareholders fund. Next we have interest coverage ratio. So it is nothing but net profit before interest and taxes by fixed interest and charges. So what this says is the company's ability to pay the interest on its outstanding debt. So here what we can say is out of the complete profit that we are generating, right? We are dividing that by our fixed interest and charges that we have to pay. Okay, so to have a better stability here, we are trying to increase the interest coverage ratio, because what interest coverage ratio says is out of everything that you are generating, how much interest you need to pay back. So if I say 10 by 1s means if you generate 10 parts of profits including the taxes and interest, out of that you have to pay back 1. It means you are getting only 9 parts. Okay, here I am not doing subtraction, but here we are trying to analyze. So 10 is to means nothing but when 10 is my net profit, including the I mean before paying the interest and taxes means including the interest and taxes, one part is something that I have to pay back as my interest and charges. So higher the value, the good it is, because here we are trying to decrease this and increase the numerator. Okay, dividend coverage ratio. So this is again similar to interest coverage ratio, where we are trying to see that okay, here we are removing the tax. Okay, after paying the taxes we are seeing what is the interest that is left, and out of that interest we are dividing it by preference dividend method. Okay, so preference dividend means what? So when we have a shareholders, we have similarly we have preference dividend means as shareholders we can see okay, based on the environment, based on the company's trend and growth, we can say okay, this much profit, okay, this much percentage of the profit we are going to retain, and this much percentage of the profit we are going to give it to shareholders. So that's how the percentage that shareholders gets varies. But preference dividend means it is fixed. Okay, this much percentage you are going to get, and they are given more percentage than compared to the what we can say shareholders. And the only thing is shareholders have, if some decisions is happening, shareholder will have the right to vote, but preference dividend will not have. Okay, so here we are trying to see that after I pay the taxes, the earnings that is left, if I divide it by preference dividend, means what part of the earning that I have to return it to preference dividend. 10 is to 1 means 10 is my earnings after tax, and out of that one part is something that I have to return it back to preference dividend. So that is my dividend coverage ratio. So here how much is the coverage of the dividend on the total earnings after tax. Okay, so that's how you read this as a statement. Now solvency ratio, here it is nothing but profit that we are getting after tax and the depreciations out of total liabilities. Okay, so here, whatever the profit that is an organization is generating after tax that we have considered here, so earnings and profits are same. Okay. Now profits. Okay. So earnings, yeah, that is same, and profit after tax plus depreciation. So depreciation will be negative value, so that will be removed from the taxes. So I can say after that I can get a net profit. Okay. So out of that net profit, if my liability is this much, okay, then what will be my solvency ratio? So here the more better the numerator is, the better the solvency ratio is. So if that value is more, I can say the probability of an organization getting bankrupted is less, because the probability of the organization stability is more. Okay, so if 5 by 3 is nothing but 1.66, so as the value increases, I can say the probability of organization stability is more. So here again we try to increase the solvency ratio. Okay, next the fixed asset ratio. So here our net sales and net property, plant and equipment. So how we are going to interpret? So we can say that an organization has this much property, plant and equipment. So whatever value we are going to have in our denominator, we can say that is our net property, plant and equipment. So out of this asset, if I am able to generate this much of sale, okay, what happens in that case? If this much of sale is happening based on this much of asset, based on that I can consider how efficiently an organization is using its asset to generate sales. So you can say that in some of the cases, if suppose I write this net property, plant and equipment divided by net sales instead of in this manner, what happens? So here, if net sales is in numerator, we say that ratio should be more, since my asset will be in denominator and sales is more, if the ratio will be more, I can say with the small asset I am able to generate more sales. But if that opposite happens, that is net property is in denominator and is in numerator and net sales is denominator, we need to focus on decreasing the efficiency, I mean decreasing the ratio value. So that's how my interpretation is like, since net sales should be more compared to assets, the ratio should increase. So that's how I can say that fixed asset ratio is more, so it is good. If it is less, it is bad. And the interpretation will be the efficiency with which an organization is using its assets to generate the sales. Okay, now capital gearing ratio, what it means? It is a ratio of fixed interest bearing funds. So here we are not talking about the interest, okay, we are talking about the funds for which we need to pay the interest. For suppose I have taken a 10 crore of loan and for which I have to pay 10 lakhs of interest. Okay, so I can say 10 crore is my fund for which interest needs to be paid. And this is the equity share which I have. Equity share capital means the capital which I bought from the shareholders. So what it says is, if you are paying this much, okay, and if you are getting this much, so based on this, I can say how much debt I have as compared to equity. So the lesser it is, the better it is, because the amount that I'm paying is in numerator. So the more I decrease this value, the more the ratio is going to decrease and the better it is. Okay. So we have covered this leverage ratio, which is solvency, and liquidity ratio. So these two we have covered. Next we are remaining with the other two. After that we are going to see what are the ratios which is beneficial for the person who is investing in shares, or who is trying to sell his sale. So not sell, okay, as an okay, not sell, but for buying we can say, okay, so it is good for an investor. So profitability ratio. So now these things we can say, if one we get, we can get the other as well, because we have uh, the terminologies are changing, but the attributes and the content behind them remains the same. Okay. So first is my gross profit ratio. So what it says, the gross profit divided by net sales. Okay. So higher gross profit means what? That okay, so see, I have sold 10 units of goods and I have got the gross profit of 100 rupees. Okay, similarly if I sell 20 uh, okay, 20 products and I get again 100 rupees. Okay, so I can say that 100 by 10 is good or 100 by 20 is good. Of course 100 by 10 is good, right? Because I'm getting profit same, but then the net sales is more or less. So with this amount of sales, how much profit am I generating? That is my gross profit ratio. So the more it is, the better it is, because the profit should increase and the net sales should decrease. So overall the ratio should increase. Similarly, net profit ratio. So here we are, after paying taxes, what is my net profit by net sales? So you can see we are again talking about net sales only, but here gross profit, and here we are taking net profit. Now, after seeing these two ratios, you can say what is the difference between a gross profit and a net profit. So in this case, what I can say, okay, first we'll try to understand gross profit. After we uh, start from the raw material and we send the product to the client or end user, whatever we have to, our the cost of goods were there, right? Like we have to pay the transport, and we have to pay the, okay, we have to give some discount. So whatever expenses that we had for selling the product, and after buying and selling whatever the amount that organization gets, that is a gross profit ratio. Okay, now this is done. Now after this, there are some expenses which didn't involved in buying and selling uh, process to the client, but after this, whatever the gross profit that company is getting, out of that gross profit, company will pay its own expenses like paying the rents, paying the current bill, paying to its employees. So after removing all that, now the one that we get is our net profit. Okay. Now next is our operating profit ratio. So what operating profit ratio is? Operating income divided by sales revenue. So if we in general see what is the difference between the income and revenue. Okay, so sales revenue or the revenue means, okay, so let's talk about sales revenue. If after I sell my products, the amount that I am getting is nothing but my sales revenue. That is revenue generated from sales. As simple as that. Now operating income means what? The income that I am getting from my core operations. So here the sale is also one of my core operations, right? So what I can say about the income is whatever revenue I am getting, right? Out of that, after I am removing all the expenses that I have to pay. Okay. So after that, whatever I am getting, I am seeing that as my operating income. That is income that I am generating from the operating versus the revenue that I am generating from sales. I hope that is clear. Now, can you say that operating income is like a profit? And sales revenue is like the amount that we get after selling. So this we can say the actual product of actual price of the product. So we can say that profit divided by the price of the product. Now the concept here is the profit can never be more than the product's price, correct? So this ratio can never be more than 1, or it can be equal to 1 if we are like in the initial days. For suppose we were getting net completely free of cost and I'm providing you net. So here my income was complete and my I was my like the complete thing whatever I am spending was my profit. So here I can say the real world scenario is my profit can never be equal to the product's price. So the ratio will be never be equal to 1, but it should be as close to 1. Okay. So the more it is close to 1, or the more the ratio value it is, I can say the more efficiently the company is working. Now next is my market ratio, which is okay. So all these things that we are going to study, these five things are known as a market ratio. So what it says, return on investment. So here we'll focus on that every dollar that I am spending, what is my return on that penny value. Okay, so for that we use this ratio. Now return on assets. So a company has 100 parts of assets and it is generating 10 rupees. So I can say out of the 100 asset it is generating 10. Okay, so based on this I can say how efficiently a company is managing its assets to generate a net income. Okay, again, return on equity. So it is similar to return on assets. Here we are simply saying how much uh, a contribution is done by the shareholders equity to the net income. In that way I can interpret, or I can say to the how much income is generated from the shareholders equity. Okay, so the two ways of interpretation: one is how much of net income is contributed by shareholders equity, or from shareholders equity. The ratio I can see, if it 10 is to 1 means out of that 10, or I can say 100 is to 10 means out of 100% of my net income, 10% of income is generated by my shareholders equity. Similarly, return on capital employed. So this means capital employed means the amount of money that is spent on the running of business, that is currently employed. Okay, currently kept in running the business. So out of that how much income I am generating, that is my return on capital employed. So these that was the end of my profitability ratios. Now these are some of the ratios which is uh, which needs to be calculated in terms of investors point of view. Okay, now earnings per share means for this, I have already shown an example. I'll give you an examples one more time. So, if suppose the profit is 10 rupees, out of that company says that two, okay, 10%, 10 rupees is my earnings. So, 2 rupees I am going to keep it aside for the company's benefit or the company's growth. 8 rupees I am going to give it to my shareholders. Now 8 rupees I am going to give. Now how many shares I have? No, I mean how many shareholders I have? 4. So I'll divide all of them among the shareholders equally. Okay, now again you can say, okay, I have 4 shares, other person have 2 shares. So again, based on that, the number of share how, okay, so here we can say instead of calculating how much we are giving to each person, we can calculate how much amount will be given to each share. Like suppose there are 4 shares and profit is 8, so 2 rupees will be given to each share. Now if I have 2 shares, I'll get 4 rupees. So that's how we calculate earning per share. And dividend per share, inter cover ratio, dividend coverage ratio. This we have studied in the profitability ratio and solvency ratio. Okay. Now the last thing, the last type of ratio is activity ratio. Okay. Now these are one of the easily identifying how okay, about the organization. Once we read the ratio, you'll get to know. So inventory turnover ratio means the cost of goods sold divided by average inventory. So based on this, what we get as the output is number of times an inventory is sold. So more is the number of times, the more it is good for the company and for the shareholders. Okay. Next we have debtors turnover ratio. Now debtors means what? The amount receivable. Okay, so the amount receivable is more, then it is good for our the organization. But here it is not about how much the received has to be done. But here we use net credit sale divide by accounts receivables to identify how efficiently a credit sale or the product is given or sold to an end user at the credit basis, and how efficiently an organization is able to get it back. That is a good debt, not a bad debt. So how much easily, okay, so here only 2 points. How efficiently the company is giving or selling the stocks at sales, and how efficiently it is getting back that sale as well. Okay, so how efficiently it is getting back the money for which the product was sold on credit. So that's what debtors turnover ratio means. So the more it is, the better it is. Now creditors turnover ratio is exactly opposite. So it says that how much you purchased in credit by average accounts payable. Okay, so here, if the ratio is more, okay, what happens? For sure, we know that debtors turnover ratio is more, the good it is. Creditors turnover ratio is the more, the bad it is. Now here, what we are trying to interpret is how frequently the company is paying its what I can say liabilities, because it is not a good what I can say. It is not a positive impact on the organization if it is paying again and again very frequently. That shows how much more its current liability is. Okay, and then we have working capital turnover ratio. So it shows that how much efficiently whatever the capital it has, then organization is having, how much efficiently that working capital is used to generate the net sales. Okay, so it is similar to that. Out of the net sales that we have, what okay, so this is interpreted it. Okay, so the less the average working capital, the better it is. The more the net sales, the better it is. So here we can interpret like average working capital is X, and out of that X, I am able to generate this much amount of net sales. So if I have 2 by 1 for one organization, 3 by 1 for other organization, I can say average working capital is same for both the company, but the net sales is 2 for one company and 3 for other company. So the other company is most efficiently using its average working capital to generate net sales. Okay, so that's how working capital is good for comparison. Next I have net credit purchase. So this is not a ratio, but based on this I can find the position of a company, and if I find a position of one company, similarly I can go for the other, and then I can compare these two values. Okay, so when I'm comparing the two values of two organization, again I can say it's a ratio. Okay. Now final topic is dew point equation. So this completely focus on this return of, one second. Yeah, here it is. Return on equity. So if you can see here we are seeing from from shareholders equity how much net income is, or I can say how much shareholders equity is contributed to net income. So just remember this formula, net income by shareholders equity. If I go back and point to the dew point equation, I can say net income is there, shareholder equity is there. So this ratio is as it is, but I am adding revenue in numerator and denominator, and similarly to total asset in denominator and numerator. So these two can cancel, and finally again we will be left with net income by shareholders equity. But what DuPont equation says that, okay, so these are the figures on which if we try to focus to improve our return on equity. Okay, so to increase, we either need to increase the net income or revenues or total assets, and to decrease, and similarly decrease the denominators. Okay, so the dew point equation says that this is my complete equation, and I need to focus on increasing the variables in the numerator, that is net income, revenues, and total assets, and decreasing the revenues, total assets, and shareholders equity. So overall, it reduced to net income and shareholders equity only. Okay, now yeah, so this was my complete dew point equation, which was focusing on what are the various variables that are available to increase the return on equity. So these were the ratios, and I hope the interpretation makes sense to you. If not, you can like listen it at 0.7x. Otherwise, we have this Investopedia, which is a very good, what I can say, content providing with respect to the finance and balance sheets or any other kind of financial statements. If you have any queries, you can write down in the comment section. And if you didn't understood any specific ratio, please ask that as well. And if you liked my explanation, please do subscribe and share. That's it for today. Thank you.